Sorry, this is like, I need to figure out how to focus on answering questions while playing this, because I feel like I'm just mindlessly moving this. Hey, it's Hallie Tutt, and you're watching Push the Wall. I'm actually from Vancouver originally. Like, I was about an hour away from the downtown in this town called White Rock. So it's like right on the border of Canada and the US. So I kind of grew up like a beach town kid. The only place we'd ever go is the beach. It's pretty great. But like, I've come to Toronto every summer since I was like a little kid. I've always wanted to live here. So like when we actually ended up moving here 2 years ago, it was sort of like my dream place to live. So I was really excited. I was like a weird artsy kid, and I like wanted to try everything related to art. So I just drew a lot. I painted. I think I always knew I wanted to be an artist, but I didn't really know what kind of artist. Like I grew up in a very academic family where it was kind of like the goal at the end was that you needed to have a career that would make good money so you could sort of just have a good life through that. So becoming an artist wasn't something that my family was super, like, they would see me doing. So I didn't have a specific kind of art that I wanted to do. I just wanted to figure out a way I could make a living at being an artist somehow. Actually, my dad got me this like little point and shoot camera when I was like 7, and I used to bring that to school every day in my pocket. So at lunch I'd like take pictures of all my friends with it. So that was even before Instagram or anything was around, but I'd still like bring them home and edit them on Photoshop when I was a little kid. You know, you'd bump up the saturation to like 100 so the grass was really green. Yeah, I don't know if I really fell in love with it then or if it was later on, but I definitely always was very interested in it. My mom was kind of strange, and she didn't really let us watch any TV. So I feel like I never really watched anything. Like, TV just wasn't a thing to me as a kid. And I guess it still really isn't. I used to shoot really dark things, like me lying on the ground and like weird foggy days at the beach and stuff like that. Like, I don't know, I used to feel like photography was more just to capture things I found were really beautiful, and I didn't really shoot people as much. Like, that wasn't my main goal, but it slowly evolved into being something that like more portrait based. And that's kind of like when things started to really happen for me. Like, I had those LED light strips in my bedroom when I was younger, and like I started getting really into photography, and I like realized that it'd be cool to kind of try and light something with them. So I shot this kind of very aesthetic music video for one of my producer friends. So it wasn't like there wasn't a singer on the track or anything, but it was just like this instrumental he had made for his new album. So we kind of just shot a bunch of these very brightly colored scenes for it. And from there, I kind of had like accumulated all those photographs from shooting all those different scenes. And I kind of started like putting them together in a grid, like just to see kind of how it would look if I started posting all of them together. And it just looked so crazy that I wanted to kind of make that an art project in itself, to start taking all these photos and then just like have that as what my social media was, is just like this grid of very vibrant color, because I'd never really seen anyone do something like that. So originally it wasn't that I wanted to shoot just that style all the time. It was like specifically for my Instagram that I kind of started creating that aesthetic for it. Like, my Instagram page itself was like an art project for me. But then people started to kind of hit me up to shoot that kind of stuff for them. And that's kind of when it turned into more of like something I started doing like in a serious way as a style. And that actually really helped me grow as a creative, I think. Honestly, I feel like I'm actually like not the best at capturing people in their true essence. Like, my photography in a way almost alienates people. Like, I never imagined myself being a portrait photographer. It's just something that kind of happens when you want to start meeting people in the creative industry, but you're also a photographer. You just ask them to shoot, and most people are usually down to get photos of themselves taken. So that way you get to kind of just like meet them as people and have a conversation and maybe just learn more about them through that. And photography lets you kind of have have that interaction without it just being weird. Like you give them the gift of a portrait in order to have a conversation, which is kind of cool. The stress of going out and knowing like you have this many models and you need this many shots of them from top to bottom, and the shots you like aren't the ones that the brand wants, and then you have that conflict, and then you're like re-editing because they didn't like the way you edited it, and all of that together, it's like that's something that I feel like that wasn't what I intended to be as a creative. I'm trying to more avoid like taking many more jobs where I'm just solely the photographer of the shoot, because I feel like what's expected of you isn't to be an artist, but more to be a documenter of brand material. Like they don't take your opinion on the art the correct way. Frank Ocean is a major source of inspo always. That man, I don't know, I don't even really listen to him for the music anymore, but he's more of like he's just company. Like his voice is very familiar to me, and I love the way that he kind of, like the sort of branding he's created for himself is very mysterious and very, like he never has to be in the spotlight, yet everyone always is watching him, which is interesting to me. So I'm very inspired by that kind of lifestyle that he lives. Like I don't know, I knew I always wanted to shoot for Nike, and then like I felt like when I was in Toronto, it was something that was more plausible than when I lived in Vancouver, because I knew Nike Toronto was like, it had its headquarters here. So I started to try and just track down which Nike people were in Toronto and which ones kind of knew people I knew. And I just started sending them photos I'd taken of Nike shoes. Like I just DM them photos of shoes that I had taken, just saying like, thought you might enjoy this photo of some shoes that I took for my high school project or something like that. And eventually they started kind of looking at them and kind of saying they thought they were cool, and I was able to say, well, you know, I'd love to shoot with you guys sometime. And one of them responded back saying, we might have something for you early next year. It was like the fall of 12th grade, and I was just sending them photos like that. And then in early, I think February was when they actually got me to come into their office, and I wasn't sure what the project was going to be, but they kind of sat me down with the new Air Max 270, and it had that really highlighter pink sole on the back, like the air bubble sole. They overwhelmed me with it, because they kind of said that like they were going to have this new Air Max campaign for Air Max Day, and they wanted me to creative direct it. So they were going to have all these artists come in and do different things with the shoe, but overall it was going to be like my aesthetic, and I could like work with the other artists and we'd make it something crazy with like whatever I wanted to do with it. And they wouldn't tell me how much money I had or anything. They just said like, think of your wildest ideas and we'll tell you what we can do, or like we'll do it. So yeah, I had to kind of sit down and figure out like how to take that in and what I wanted to do with it, because I wanted it to be very Toronto but still be my style, and like use very iconic Toronto locations but not the generic ones. So that was a challenge for sure, especially not being from Toronto, to kind of decide on what would like represent Toronto that way. But I think it went okay. Well, the end all goal is Kanye for some reason, but I can't really describe why that is. I just feel like the controversy about that man seems like something that I need to discover for myself before I can make a good opinion on him. So I'm gonna figure out how to do that. One weird thing I used to do is I shot like nightclubs when I was like 15. So I was like that kid who with the, you know, you go with the flash and you just sort of shoot those really like high exposed images of people at the club. And I didn't really like it, and I don't know how I managed to land that job being a 15-year-old girl, but I think they just never questioned it. I always looked older, and the fact that I was even attempting to get that job, they just didn't even like question that at all. And you never had to show ID to get in either, because you were just staff, so they wouldn't like I didn't have to go through security to get in, so I don't know. It was like I wanted to become a concert photographer, but I knew that none of the press companies in Vancouver would hire me unless I had background experience with kind of that similar style. So the closest I could get was shooting these nightclubs, because you could shoot the DJ from like the stage view side, and that kind of photography was enough to convince one of the press people that I had the ability to shoot concerts. So that was kind of my gateway to concert photography. I was thinking about this question, and I don't think I ever had any like real crushes, because I was too realistic of a kid to even consider crushing on someone who was that far out beyond my reach. I guess the closest I can probably say is like, do you know Adventure Time? And there's that one episode that's like the gender switched. So Marcelina the vampire is like this Marshall Lee, and it's voiced by Donald Glover. But there's just one episode, and it's great, and he's very dreamy, even though it's a cartoon. See, it's a hard one too, because like I feel like I haven't been here long enough to have gone somewhere enough times to say it's my favorite spot. There's this one place, I don't know, like it's near Dundas and Ossington, but a little further down Dundas, called Uncle Mikey's. It's like a really good spot. I don't know how to describe it, but yeah, shout out Uncle Mikey's. Being as young as I was and wanting to do the kind of photography I wanted to, it was a challenge a lot of the times, because I just couldn't get into the places. Like I was too young to be in the club, and I was too young for a lot of the concerts I wanted to shoot. So I had to find creative ways to get around needing ID all the time. Or like I had a fake ID at one point, but then I lost that one. And then I had a real ID, but it wasn't my ID. But the girl was only, I think, 5'4", and I'm like 5'8" or 9. So just cross my fingers all the time that no one would like, because it's in centimeters. I don't know how many centimeters it is, but most people don't know. So as long as they don't try and convert the centimeters on my real fake ID, I was good most of the time. No one questions young girls attempting to get into clubs. I don't know if I really know yet what I want it to be. I'm just been kind of trying out a lot of things. I feel like the lifestyle that I'm living right now isn't something that I want to do forever. Like at some point I want to change entirely and kind of just disappear from what it is and like take the money and run. But it's complicated. Eventually I think I just want to be a housewife. I think that's actually, I've come full circle to realize that after all, like I've achieved most of what I thought I wanted, or I've achieved enough to realize what it's gonna be like to get everything. Like I can kind of feel like it won't feel as satisfying as I want it to. And the more rewarding lifestyle would actually be the one that most people have. And they envy people like people who get to do all these crazy things in like this music industry, fashion lifestyle that we're all living. But I don't know, I think it comes back around to like a suburban life with some kids, and get a minivan. Maybe paint on the side when your kids are at school. Yoga class.